We're back. It's COMP228 Java programming. It's week 2, lesson 2, part 1. So last week you kind of did an intro to Java, a little bit of intro to Eclipse, and all that kind of stuff. We're going to continue with that this week. I've put the latest PowerPoint output to PDF up on eCentennial. So if you actually look at week 2, there's going to be a little PowerPoint there. I've also added a little lab that we're going to do today, and Selena's got the beauty of already have done it. Just have to just kind of redo it and put it up there again, right? And for anyone who's part of my the class that we do for game programming and all that kind of stuff, we already have kind of a lab that I'm doing with everybody. If you don't have access to GitHub, and we're going to do the kind of this little GitHub lab today, then I'm going to ask you to get it. If you do have access to GitHub and you have a GitHub account, wonderful. That means you're going to get a free 2.5% today for your final mark, right? So if you look up online, that's due, the actual lab is due by the end of tonight, until you have until tonight at midnight. But I know that most of you are going to complete it or kind of do it very easily within the class time frame. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. So let's just show you where that is to get that out of the way. If I was to just log in here, and when we log in, let's go to eCentennial, and from there, if we look at the course now for Java programming, under our Dropbox, you can see that there's a GitHub setup, right? That's what you have to do. And from an instructions perspective, all you need to do is sign up for a GitHub account if you don't have one already, and then attach a text file with your GitHub account information for 2.5%. Nice and easy. Well, if you don't have a GitHub account, you'll figure it out, right? So go sign up for a GitHub account, and then we'll go from there. So if you don't know what GitHub is, it's a repository, a place we keep our files. I kind of showed you this last time. So if you go to github.com, actually let me go to github.com with an incognito mode, so it doesn't know who I am. So you see this is what happens. If you go there for the first time, you see this, right? You sign up for GitHub. And GitHub is a cloud service where we can store our files, but also collaborate with others, like I said before, and it allows us to keep track of our versions, the versions of our projects as we work. You know, as an example, we continue to build something. We're building some kind of project, whether it's a web project or some kind of programming project. And then what we can do is we can use GitHub to place our files where we can collaborate with others and/or work kind of on our own. Now, normally, if you notice here, it says private plans start at $7. Typically, you can sign up for a free account where you can use it with public repos, public repositories, right? If you want to get private repositories, and I kind of showed this in other classes, but like I said yesterday, I'll show it again. You want to try going to DreamSpark, DreamSpark, which is kind of gives you all kinds of free software for students, and there's also packages like this GitHub Educational Pack, right? If you actually go there for GitHub Educational Pack, it'll give you access to some really nifty things. For example, some private repos. It'll give you a free domain name. That's really cool, and an SSL certificate. And some other stuff if you just sign up and you verify that you're a student at some college or university, which is really cool right now, right? So I would totally take advantage of this if you haven't, checked this out. The other thing, just since we're here, like I mentioned yesterday to some of the other people that I had, is the Microsoft Azure for DreamSpark pack, which is you can sign up for cloud services where you can actually set up your websites and all that kind of stuff on the cloud. And on that, if you ever want to set up a website, I kind of mentioned that before, but I'll say it again. Like I said in other classes, you can always go to GitHub Pages. If you were to go to GitHub Pages, you can set up a free site, and it'll be hosted up on GitHub for yourself. And there's rules and kind of instructions on how to do that if you follow along here, or if you look up GitHub Pages. So depending on what kind of client you're using. Speaking of clients, you can always download, you can access GitHub in different ways. You can do it via command line, right? So I can have a Git repository here, on the command line where I can set up a local space where I have my files. An example is for my files in our Eclipse project. Here's our Eclipse project here, right? And if you notice right now, this is from last week, right? We have COMP228 lesson 1, right? This is our files. But this isn't a Git repository. And I can tell because it doesn't have the markings that it would normally have if it was a Git repository. One thing also that you might want to get is the Git extension for Eclipse, okay, where you can do actually a lot of commits directly from Eclipse into your local Git repository, and then eventually push your commits up to GitHub. Now, if you're like, what is he talking about? What are pushes? What is Git? What is this thing he speaks of? Well, again, you have to think about it like from a point where when you sign up or set up your project files, right? You have a folder where your files kind of lay out in Java, right? And that workspace folder, and in my case, if I was going to look at file, switch workspace, you can see that my typical workspace is probably going to be something like users, Thomas, documents, workspace as an example, right? So this workspace, I don't want to make the whole workspace a Git repository because that would be bad, right? But what you could do is you can make it so that this repository here, this project is a repository. The first thing we have to do, of course, is find the project on the computer somewhere. Where does it exist on my local hard drive? And if you notice, if I actually look here on the top, it says COMP228 lesson 1 source hello world.java Eclipse, and then it says users Thomas courses COMP228 Java programming workspace. Big path. Now yours might say something different. Obviously, if you're using a PC, using a Mac, it might say something like this. But let's see if I can find my workspace here, just in this particular example. So I'm going to go to, again, it says C Thomas courses COMP228 Java. So here's my courses, and then here's COMP228 Java programming, and then workspace. I'm going to go back down to workspace, and then it should show COMP228 lesson 1. There it is, right? So this is what I want to make my Git repository, not this workspace, but this inside this folder here where I have my bin and source files, okay? My bin and source files. And you know what? I already have. If you remember last week, I kind of put it together and I threw it up on Git. We're going to do the same thing this week when I start off a new project, and it's a good kind of refresher of what we did kind of last week. So let's do that together. So join me on Eclipse. We're going to try and do this this week. I'm going to try a lot more demoing during the day when we're together between this time frame, 10:30 to 12:30. And then remember, we're supposed to have this class later on between 6:30 and 8:30 at night. And my scope, I'm going to try this out tonight, is to try and broadcast it so you don't have to physically be here, right? Now, are you guys all okay with it? That's the question first before I do this. Are you guys okay with me broadcasting the class? Anyone not okay? How about that? Put up your hand, right? You're not okay? Really? No, that's good, Tim. No, the reason why is because, and again, this is advantage and disadvantage. Can we do this all the time? Absolutely not. There's gonna be times where I do tests. There might be a quiz, something where I unfortunately will require you to come to class, and I'll broadcast that. If you guys watch the videos, probably the week before, I'll say, guys, next week on this time frame, we're doing a test. You have to be here, 6:30 to 8:30. But chances are, as an example, I'll try and avoid that as much as possible until we get to exam week, which is week 7. On week 7, I don't have a choice. There's going to be probably a multiple choice and a practical piece to your exams. And when that comes to time, I'll have one of our classes, our quote unquote day 1 class would be like right now, this time frame, our lab and lecture, right? So let's say this class will do our practical, and then later on we'll do a multiple choice, right? So I need both classes for us to do that. And unfortunately, we all have to be physically present in order for us to get that done. Jesus, girl.
Sorry.
Didn't you learn from last week? All right. Sorry, just we have Ravina coming late. I'm just recording this live on YouTube just so she knows. Anyway, so at the end of the day, right, what we want to try and do is today do the demoing now, and then later on I'll do all the PowerPoint stuff so it doesn't drive you crazy, right? Because I can do all the PowerPoint stuff together, but the challenge with the PowerPoint stuff is it's mostly from the book. We talk specifics about, I'm still going to test you on it, so you should still watch the videos. And so if I do the videos only from 6:30 to 8:30 and there's no class, just putting it out there, I'm going to have to make an announcement. I'm going to send out a broadcast saying, like today before class, saying, hey, just a reminder, we're going to be broadcasting the class and there is no live class from 6:30 to 8:30 tonight, right? Probably the broadcast will start at 7 and thereabouts when I get home, right? Because it's going to take me about half an hour. And I'll probably keep going for about 2 hours thereabouts until about 9. It might not be that long, right? But the video will be recorded tonight, right? So it'll be up on YouTube for those people who can't attend for whatever reason. They can't go and do the broadcast. The challenge of doing a broadcast like that is there's an onus on you to watch the videos because there's information there you need for your exams. And there's an onus on me to produce the videos because if I don't do it, then you don't have information to do your exam, right? So it's kind of like, you know, a handshake between both of us, right? So the only way this can be successful is we all agree. Now, here's what happens when it's not successful. So let's say somehow I'm not seeing the numbers. I'm not seeing you guys watch the videos. Like I can actually see how many people watched, right? And no one's watched the videos, right? Then it'll stop and I'll just have my 6:30 to 8:30 class because I want you guys to actually do the work, right? It's not just about me producing them and you never watching them, right? Now, you can watch them anytime during that week. So I'm going to give you a week to watch it, right? So you don't have to physically be, you know, watching it on that day. If you have something else to do on a Tuesday night between 6:30 and 8 or 9 o'clock, let's say, you can do whatever you like, right? And you want to watch it as long as I see that they're watched by the next week, I'm good because you've absorbed the information, you know, kind of thing, or you have that information. I don't want them to see them watched, you know, on the day of the exam when you need the videos. That would be very bad, right? That would be like, come on, let's watch all the videos now all at once, right? And then zip by them and play them at super speed, and I don't care what Tom says, right? That's fine. I mean, you don't have to care what I say, but just generally, what I want you to do is, I want you to think about how we can make this thing work, and it's going to work for all of us, right? For me and for you guys, right? So we can all get home a little earlier instead of just like now. Some of you have a all-day thing, like you're here. Like, look, we're here at 10:30 in the morning. You guys have probably been here earlier. Am I guessing some of you from 8:30 in the morning, and you're going to be here till 8:30 at night again, like 12 hours, right? To me, that's a long time for you guys to keep your attention, be at school, not get tired, and be productive. And that's why I'm offering this option. Again, if the option doesn't work and I see it's not working, it's going to stop, right? So it's something that we're going to try and do so that way it suits everyone. Again, I'm going to ask one more time. Is there anyone against it that's here in the class? I think you guys represent the majority of the class. So I'm going to take kind of majority rules. If you're against it, please put up your hand and we won't have it done. Any one of you will stop me. Okay, I don't care because I need to be there for all of you. All right, so no one's saying no. Here's the other thing I'm going to offer you. If you need me, we do a project, an assignment, something, and it's during this time frame when we normally meet to ask questions. I'm still going to make myself available. Even though I'm not physically here, you can still schedule time with me where I can meet with you or whatever. At least, and if there's a group of you, let's say 3 or 4 of you or something like that, or maybe a couple of you that want to kind of ask questions because you don't understand something, we can always do kind of a Hangouts, you know, where you guys can kind of get together in front of one webcam, even if I'm remote, and we can do that. Or you can meet with me during my office hours. You can make an appointment during my office hours. We can meet downstairs in 8320, right? Right, 8230, I'll be okay. 8230, which is downstairs in the main office there, right? Okay, so I just want to talk about the logistics there, just so before we move on. Okay, so that's what we're going to try tonight and see how this works. If it doesn't work, it's okay. We tried, right? If it does work, we have something to gain. If it doesn't work, we have nothing to lose. All right. So let's kick off a new project then, because we're going to do this project-based stuff during the day. And how do we do that? How do I kick off a new project in Eclipse? What do I do?
File.
So I go to File, New.
Project.
I could do Project, okay? Or I could do, if you've loaded it properly, Java Project, right?
Okay.
Java Project would be just as good. Let's do Java Project for now, right? When I load up my Java project, I get this dialog box. That's what these things are called, right? And it says in the top, it says create a Java project. So guys, for those people who are just coming in for whatever reason, right? Kick up your Eclipse, please, because this is a we do together thing, not a you watch thing, okay? And let's do it together because during a test, you're gonna need to know how to do this kind of stuff. All right, so I've got my Eclipse going, and I need to put a project name together, and I'm gonna call this project COMP228, and then it's gonna be lesson 2, right? COMP228 lesson 2. And if you notice here, it says use an execution environment JRE, right? Which is myself, I'm using the Java SE 1.8. That's the one we want to focus on for this semester of this Java that we're using here. I can also use a specific one for the project, something else, if I really wanted to. I don't want to do that, right? I could click next, and if you click next, you notice there's some options here for creating the project. We want to kind of click through it and press finish for now because there's nothing else we want to add here. We could certainly add additional information here, and if you notice on top here, if you hover, it says link additional source to the project. It also open the new Java source folder wizard, and so on, and clear all changes. Right? We don't want to do any of this kind of stuff. We just want to click finish. When we do that, I'm just going to close this file off for Hello World from last week. We have an empty project. One thing to note that if it's a successful project, you'll see the JRE down here. Right? Remember, we have to link our JRE. Our JRE 1.8 or Java 8 has to be linked into our system for this to appear. If you don't see this, that means your system isn't pointing to the version 8 of the JRE. Okay, where do we get this if we can't do it? Like last time, remember we had to go to download. If I go download Java 1.8, if I was going to do something like that, it's going to take me here to the Java SE development kit. That's the JDK, right? JDK is okay. It's still going to point to what we're looking at. What we want is the Java runtime library, right, as well. Both will work, by the way. Let's say if I go JRE 1.8 download, if I do one of those on Google, right, then I can also go to, there's another one, the Java SE Standard Edition Runtime Environment 8 downloads. And this is what I really want, my runtime environment that can kick off everything I need to do in Eclipse. All right, so again, you would have the downloads for your type of operating system here. All right, so that is really how we get it. Let me go back to Eclipse for a second. So I've got my Eclipse, and now I want to I want to create a new class inside of my lesson 2 folder. Okay, we talked about this. I'm talking about GitHub here because your first lab, which is due tonight, which is up on eCentennial, right, is that same lab we did for some of you who were with me on gaming, is to create your own, to sign up for GitHub and all that kind of stuff. You get 2.5% if you complete it tonight. If you don't complete it tonight, you get 0, right? There is no option to complete it tomorrow, right? And the way to do it is you go up on GitHub. I'll show you where that is, right? Go up on GitHub, and what you want to do is you want to sign up here on GitHub for your account if you don't have one already. And the other option is to actually go download the Microsoft DreamSpark, DreamSpark pack for GitHub, the student pack, and get signed up this way. There's 2 different ways of taking care of that. And then once you sign up, I want you to give me your sign-up name. My sign-up name is my last name, right? So I want github.com/ and probably your name or whatever you signed up as. Like if you signed up as Darth Vader, that's your name, right? Your sign-up name. Then it would be github.com/ Darth Vader, right? Yeah. Once you signed up, no, you have to sign up for a new account. Yeah. So make a new account. It's okay to make a new account. You can make as many free accounts as you want with GitHub, I think, with the same email, and they won't really complain too much.
You have an old account from the previous course, so
you could totally use an old account from previous course. I don't need you to create a new account just for this course, right? Yeah. So again, if your account name is Darth Vader, right, or Star Wars, or whatever you want to make it, that's your account name. You can make whatever account name you like, by the way. Fancy Cat, right? You know, something else like that, right? You can make your account number if it's your last name. Maybe it's your last name or a combination of your name. Like mine is my last name. Then I will want your github.com/ and your account name inside of a text file uploaded onto Dropbox. And once you've done that, you've completed your first lab 1. That's it. That's all. Yes, that's all I want you to do. And I'll tell you right now, people will not do this, and they'll complain. Tom, I didn't understand your directions, right? They won't get it done. You get 0 if you don't get it done. You guys are programmers. If you don't understand what I'm saying to upload something, a text file on Dropbox, something's not right, right? You guys got to figure. You got to talk to me today about it, right? We got to figure if there's a misunderstanding from a language perspective. You guys got to let me know. So lab 1 is due today, 2.5%. GitHub sign up. put up your GitHub name up on Dropbox, done. You get your 2.5%. Okay. Okay. So that's part of it. But one part is if I want a Git plugin for Eclipse, and there is that. If I say Git plugin for Eclipse, right? As an example, if I do that, there's a plugin called eGit, right? Which I recommend you download and install. And there's actually a configuration setting. They tell you how to do it here, right? To download eGit, right? If I click download distribution, I can do that. What is it going to do? It's going to tell me how to install the latest release in different ways. So it says I can do it from the main update site, recommended, and via the Eclipse marketplace. I can do it that way. There's different ways to do it. But if you do, this is one option. You don't have to do this. But if you include it in Eclipse, you can actually add this as part of one of your repositories, right? Or to actually connect with GitHub through Eclipse. That's one thing you could do, right? The other way you could do it is to download the Git client, right? Which is a little desktop client that goes for across all your operating systems. So if I was to look at, if I say something like windows.github.com, then you would be able to download the desktop version of Git, so that way, or GitHub, so you can connect with GitHub and upload your files. Guys, a lot of you have come in really late. This is the last day this is going to happen. I'm going to shut the doors next time, okay? You guys are coming in 23 minutes in, okay? Next time, doors close. So otherwise, you're interrupting me. And then the people that were here on time can't get everything from me that I want to give them. We only have a very short time together. So please be on time for the class, all right? All right. So let's take a look at this now. We're looking at GitHub and how to download. So there's a couple of options here. You can download the desktop application for GitHub, so you can connect with GitHub. And if you follow the installation instructions, it's a pretty simple connection. Okay. You can also do it through command line. If you're a command line person and you like doing it that way, that's another way, and that's a very efficient way to get it done. So how would I do that? I would go into, again, my file. So I'm going to have to find something like courses. There it is, right? And I got to find myself. I'm going to go to COMP228 because that's where it is. I want to go into Workspace, and if you look at Workspace, it's interesting because under Workspace, take a look here. Now it's reporting me that I'm in that workspace, right? Here it is. But I'm seeing some other weird crap in here. Like I'm seeing lessons and Pythonic and test project and all this other stuff that I don't even have, right? So how do I get to my workspace to see it? Because this is what I'm seeing, and this is my weird setup. How come am I seeing that? And where I go to GitHub, or to up here on Eclipse, I see that this is the place I'm looking. Users, Thomas, courses, there I am, and then workspace. And then inside workspace, I'm seeing this file. Well, the thing is, this isn't exactly where it is. I could certainly try and go to this site again to find out where I am, or I could set up my workspace in a different place, and if I do that, Eclipse will reset like it did last time. So how do I set it up? Well, I right-click. If I got eGit set up, I can right-click, and if I scroll down to where it says team, right? I'm sorry, there's a place where we can actually set up our Git repository. I can set it up here right in my my hierarchy, right? Under the project itself, right? Now, right now, there's nothing. I don't have my my team set up as a for GitHub or anything like that. There is a setup that it would pop up here on this particular menu. And right now, since we don't have any other repos or whatever that are built in, I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so how do I see that? What about if I go to COMP228, the other project, lesson 1? Do I see it there? And if I go back to team, again, I see share project or apply patch. So how do I do that? What is it that I can do to make it work? Let's try share project. So I go team, share project, and if I go there, it says, how do I want to share it? Well, I want to share it on Git, right? So click Git, click next. Now this, you'd have to have the eGit, or if the latest version of Eclipse might also have some of this built in, right? So it might look a little different for you. But if you don't have eGit, which is a plugin for Eclipse, you may not see what I'm seeing. Okay, so I'm going to click next. Now it's going to be asking me when I'm in here under lesson 2, right? It's going to ask me, what do I want to do, right? where do I want to install my GitHub repository? It says select an existing repository or create a new one, right? So if I select the repository, if there was one here, I could select one. There isn't one here that I can select, right? So it says, look what it says here, user create repository in parent folder of project. That's not good. Parent folder of project means that it's going to be in the workspace. That means all of my stuff is going to be in the same repository. So don't click this. That would be very bad, right? The other option would be here if I want to just click the create button. That makes sense, right? So let's click create and see what happens. So create. It says, what's my repository folder? It says users Tom as Git. No. That's bad, right? Users Tom as Git is the wrong place. I got to find where my repository is, and of course I know where that is. It's under courses, right? And it's under my case. It's the name of the folder that we're using, workspace, and it probably will be under your workspace. And I'm going to choose my lesson, which is lesson 2. Here it is, and this is where I want to put my Git repository. And I click open. Now, if you notice, my user path is the right one. Directory for my Git repository, which is users Thomas courses. The name of my folder, workspace, and then the name of my project, which is really what I want to have. I want to make my project into its own repository. Remember what repository is? It's just a place that I'm going to track changes from my project. That's what Git allows me to do. It allows me to compare from change that I make from one change to the next by creating snapshots of my current workflow. Right? Every time I make a commit, that's what they're called, snapshots. They're commits. It makes a snapshot that's held in a hidden folder on my inside my folder, right? So I can compare versions. So if I ever have a problem, like again, I kind of meant the question come out yesterday, which is how many of you have ever worked on something and it's working, and all of a sudden it stops working? You don't know why. And you're like, there's something that I did, but there's no way you can go back because the changes are wiped out because you've saved a bunch of times, right? Well, this way, if you've committed, you can go back to your previous commit and look. You can compare the changes and you can find out what you did, right? So this is locally now. We're making a local repository here, not in the cloud. GitHub is in the cloud. I'm making a local repository here. So I'm going to click finish. All right, so it says cannot move project blah, blah, blah to target location and so on. It's giving me an error. Now, this is important to note because this is what's going to happen sometimes. So this repository, this is an error message come up. It says cannot move project to target location, users, Thomas, courses, right? Because I'm trying to make a repository right here, right? That's what I've asked it to do. Let's step back and do it again so I can show you this one more time. So we don't show it's something that's messed up. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go down to team. Oh, see what's happened? Even though I said, no, I don't want to do it, right? I'm seeing that it's already been done. Once I've gone to that level and I say create repository, create repo, it's been done. Now here's what I want to really test. See how I don't have one over here? I didn't even say finish. I just say create repository. It was done. It was ready to go. So please be careful when this happens because students sometimes get a little bit confused when we do it inside Eclipse. Now again, you don't have to do it inside Eclipse. Eclipse is just another method. You can use the tool. You can use the command line. You can do it manually. There's many ways of doing it. But what I'm asking is, if you want to do it, this is what it is. Am I going to make you do it for an assignment? No. This is for you to understand what I'm doing. So if you want to pull down my files and use them or save your files, it's a good workflow. I'm paying you for it. I'm giving you 2.5% to do it, right? For the course. But if you don't want to use it ever again after this course is not about revision control and all this kind of stuff. I'm showing you this as an ancillary technology to help you as a programmer. But you don't need it for today or even for this course. Okay, so I'm connected. That's good. So now what I want to do is I want to connect it up to a Git repository that I have up online. I don't have one for this particular course, but I'm going to make one. And this is step 2 for me, right? So first of all, let me close down my this file and open up another window that's not, here we go here, that's not a incognito window. And I'm going to go into GitHub. Now I have a special GitHub repository that I've created for you guys called Centennial College, right? Yes, I stole the name, right? So Centennial College is mine, right? All of Centennial College GitHub is me. So that's my organization now, yeah? Anyways, if you go there to Centennial, so github.com/Centennial College, you'll get to my repositories. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new repository here. right? So here's my new repository under Centennial College, and I'm going to call this COMP228, and it's going to be lesson 2. So just put lesson 2 with a number. There we go. Okay, so there's lesson 2, right? And I can choose to make it public or private. If I make it private, I gotta pay, right? I don't want to make it private. It's going to be public for everyone to see. I'm also not going to initialize this with a README. I can add it later on, and I'm going to click Create Repository. Okay, let me go back and do that one more time so you guys can see that. So there's different ways. I can click this New Repository. If you have your own Git account, you can click this plus sign here, right? And it'll also create a new repository. Look, there's also Create New Organization. If you have a company, you can create a new organization for yourself. If you have a project that you're working on, a larger project that you're sharing with a team, let's say, for example, we do Project 1, and you want to work with one other person, you can create an organization, right? It's called Project 1. It's underneath your, whatever you want to call it. It's underneath your GitHub. It's linked to you. And then what you can do is you can invite team members so that you can collaborate together and add different pieces of code together. But for me, all I want to do is create this new repository. So I wanted to create my new repository, which is going to be called, again, COMP228 lesson 2. Okay, and I'm going to click Create Repository. It's going to give me directions on how to set things up on Git, right? I've got this actual file. I need this. I need to keep this piece open for now, as an example, in order for me to create my repository and link it. There's different instructions for both the quick setup, if you have the desktop app, or if you want to do command line, it's right here as well. All right, so there's different ways to do this kind of stuff, and they give you directions on how to link to your new cloud repository on GitHub. Okay, but we want to do it from here, from Eclipse. So let's go to the next level. First, I want to add a class, right? And today's lesson is about classes and objects, right? And what we're going to do today is use getters and setters method, right? So I want to create a new class. We're just going to call it, our new class is going to be called program, right? Follow me here. So I'm going to go to source, the source folder, src. I'm going to say new. I'm going to go class, right? And under my class, I'm going to call this class the program class, right? It's really unimaginative, but it's okay. And if you notice here in this new dialog box that I have here, I have a choice to name the package, right? My package is almost like the namespace. By default, we're not talking about namespaces right now or packages. We're just accepting the default package, right? Because that means that we're just putting it in the directory, the default directory. If I wanted to add a package, chances are what I want to do is do reverse domain namespacing is what I want to use. That's very common. An example of this would be this. If my domain name was Siriopoulos.com, right? Let's just say, I would put com.siriopoulos and the name of the project. That would be a very common way of doing things. I'll give you an example. So com.siriopoulos and the name of the project, which would be called COMP228 lesson 2, right? COMP228 and then lesson 2, something like that. That would be a way of me creating a package for my project. I'm not going to do this at this time. I'm just showing you what you could put in. And usually we use reverse domain spacing so that the project, the package name is unique, okay, for each project. That's what we want. Actually creates a project signature, if you will, right, for the package. If you were going to work with Android, if you were going to build Android applications, then this is what we would do. We would require a package name, a proper package name in reverse domain name spacing, okay? For us, we don't need that right now. Let's click down here a little bit and see what else, other options we have. It says, here's my modifiers. I want to make it a public class, right? My public program class. And down here, nothing is checked. What I really do want to check, because this is our main class, if you will, almost like the class that all other classes connect to, I want to click this public static void main option right here. Okay, if I do that, it's going to add this stub. That's what we call it, a stub, almost like a template into our new class that we're creating. Okay. Also note that the superclass, we talked about inheritance in C# when you did COMP228. The superclass of our class is the Java Lang object class. Okay, this is what this is. So all we want to do here is click finish. Late. Finish. Okay, when we do that, if you notice on the top here, we have our program class, and underneath that we have our public static void main method of this class, right? Which is where all the action takes place. Okay, this is our main class. And just to illustrate this, we're going to refresh ourselves from what we did last week. We're going to do a system.out.println, which is going to go to the console and say, this is our new class, or something like that. System dot. And if you notice, Eclipse comes up with some code hinting. Out dot. If I go, print line, I've done everything correctly. And inside there, I want to put something like, a message to the console that says, program started. Let's say do program started. Program started. Right? If we do that and I click save, right? So Control S on the Windows machines and Command S for Mac, right? Then what ends up happening is it saves my class, my new program.java file. That's what this thing is here, right? It saves it. Here's my outliner, if you will, my package explorer. My outline's over here, and if you notice, I do have a new class that it shows me in the outline on my right. This is the way I've set up my perspective, right? Which is my new main method under the program class. The C is class, and this little dot right here is a method that's a static method. And here's the little S. If you notice here on the right, there's a little S that shows me it's a static method, which means I don't have to create an object of the class. I don't have to instantiate a new object from this class. It'll fire, it'll actually work without me having to instantiate a new object because it's a static method. It's a container, if you will, more than anything else. Okay, so I've got this thing now, and I want to upload this to GitHub. How do I do that? Well, go to my project level, late. Right click and go down to team. And then what it says here is make a commit. That's my first commit, if you're following me here, right? If I do a commit, it asks me for a commit message. Think about a commit, like I said, as a snapshot. All I'm doing here is I'm naming my message, my commit. This is in Eclipse, by the way. All right, so I'm going to call this my initial commit. That's my message. It's my initial snapshot that I'm making. It's telling me who the author is, and if you set this up properly, it's going to say who your author is, who's the committer. You can also, if there was somebody else, you would have a different author and a different committer, right? And what do I want to include in my when I push everything up for this commit? If you notice, I can't click commit yet unless I decide what to include. Well, I definitely want to include my source program Java file. So now it allows me to do a commit. But I might as well include everything else. So I'm just going to kind of go boom, 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 all these ones. Okay, I don't need to. I'm going to do it though, so you can see what the effect it has on GitHub. So there's two options here. I can do, actually there's three. There's commit and push, cancel, and commit. If I just do a commit, it's only a local commit, something that only happens in my local repository. It doesn't go to the cloud yet. If I go commit and push, it's going to ask me, right, for my Git repository information because I haven't entered that yet. Okay, so I'm going to kind of say commit and push. It says, hey, here's my origin. What's the URL? What's the URI here? Well, I can get that URI by going back to GitHub, taking this information, copying it, right? This is the one that I got from GitHub when I created my repository, going back to this and pasting it. And once I do that, all the other information, Eclipse is smart enough, if you set up Eclipse properly for yourself, that it knows all the information here. You notice it just filled everything in for me. I didn't do anything. Are you with me? You're going to see this a couple times. So if you have never done this before, it's okay. Again, this is not the only way you can do it. You can do it through command line. You can use your desktop tool. You can use many other ways of doing this to do the same effect. Okay, let's go next. So I want to set up my push, right? It tells me the master branch and my initial commit and the commit number. This is what my new commit number is going to be. Every commit has a number. It's a numbered commit, right? Okay, it says merge upstream commits into local branch. I'm going to do that. I'm going to click next, right? It's showing me my master branch. Here's my repository that I'm going to, right? I know you may have another message because it might say log in or one of those kind of things. Configure your back where I asked you for your repository, right? Yeah, I'll go during break. I'll come around. I'll come and help you, right? Then I'm going to click finish. When I do this, if everything goes well, it's going to show me that what my message is. It pushed everything onto Git, and I'm going to click OK. Now let's check it. So here's my repository now. It's empty. It has my instructions on how to connect to it. If I refresh, I should be fine. I should be able to see my new repository in all of its glory. Take a look. Centennial College, COMP228 Lesson 2. If you go there right now, right to this link, Centennial College, github.com/Centennial College /COMP228 Lesson 2, you'll be able to see my repository. Okay, and it's not much in there. I mean, it's just a source file with program.java that shows, hey, here's my system.out.println. So this is the way I'm going to be sharing my files with you, okay, on GitHub. When you guys look at the video, this is the same way that I'm going to do it, right? I'm going to share everything on GitHub for you so you have instant access to it. There's different ways you can get at it. You can also, if I go back one step, you can, when I'm done, you could simply download the zip file for this repository after I'm done. This is live, and you would have it on your local system so you can play with it, right? You could also fork this repository, fork it on GitHub, and if you fork it, it'll actually attach to your own. I wouldn't do this now because it's not complete yet. You want to fork it when I'm done, right? If you fork it now, you're going to get what I have right now, right? And then you create a new branch, if you will, a new fork, so you can start working on it from where I'm starting. That's great if we have a larger project to start from, but right now the project is very small. So I don't recommend you do that, okay? Any questions around what I just did? All I've done is created a project in Eclipse. I've made it a Git repo, and I've pushed it up to GitHub. That's all I've done, okay? Do I need you to do this? Absolutely not. Would it be nice for you to understand it? Yes, right? So that way you see what I'm doing, and so future projects you use it. I think it's great for you to establish this as your own workflow, right? But if you don't want to, that's up to you. It's something that most modern developers do. We always have some kind of version control, revision system, whatever you want to call it, that we use for us to keep track of our changes. All right, so we've got this file here. So right now, we've kind of, last week, we kind of created the same thing. We talked about the difference between, now I'm actually doing the teaching part, by the way. So this is where you want to kind of take a look. Last week, we kind of talked about creating a simple file like this. And then, you know, we're talking about the changes or the differences between C# and Java. And there's quite a few differences, but for the most part, Java and C# are both C-influenced languages, right? So that means there's a lot of similarities that you're going to notice. Don't be fooled, though, because some of the constructs here in Java are quite different. And let's say if I run this thing in Eclipse, if I click this run button, right, it's going to say, hey, what do you want to run this as? A Java application or a Java applet? You might get a different message. I'm going to say Java application. I'm going to press this as OK, right? And then down here in the bottom, in my console, right, there's different windows that I got access to. I got my problems, if I have any problems. I have one warning, right? I have one warning. I have some Java docs, right? Like I have access to information, the API documentation, any kind of declarations, and also the declaration window and the console window, which is almost like a preview of what it would look like in the console if I ran it on the console, because I'm making a console application right now, right? Right now it says program started because that's all I've said. Program started with my system.out.println. Remember, the system.out.println as a review, right, is equivalent to console.writeline in C#. It's exactly the same, pretty much, okay? And if you notice here on line 5, that's how I put it in. I end all my Java statements with a semicolon because it's a C-influenced language. We have all of our code in a code block surrounded by these braces, just like we do in C#. So there's nothing different there. And then what we want to do is if I want to establish a variable for my class, like let's say, for example, I have a name variable, right? Let's do that. So here's my name variable, and I start typing name. And it's what type of variable is name? Well, it should be a string, right? So how would I declare this, just as a review? Would I put the data type before the variable or after the variable? Before. In some languages, you put it after. In our language, you put it before, use a capital S for string, and make it a name variable name, right? But right now, Glow is kind of saying, hey, you have to still finish this thing. So my name variable is cool, string name. Hey, how about giving it a value of some kind? Let's initialize it with nothing. Okay, cool. So what is the default value from a modifier perspective? What is the default modifier for my class? Is it public or private?
Public, yeah.
Is it public now? Is it private? I'm hearing both. Public, private, you know. Oh, no, this is public. My main, this is public. But what about this?
Oh, that's private.
Is that private? Right? How do I tell? How can I tell if this is public or
You
private?
can try accessing it from the static method.
Well, I could, right? But that it's going to appear here because in my static method here, the static main method, I'm always going to have access to it because it's inside my class. This is an instance variable, right, that I've got here. An instance variable called name, right? So my instance variable is here, right? The way to make sure that it's private or public, because if you're not sure, what do? We put it in access modifier in front. What I'd like you to do is never leave these things blank. Put in something. Like, for example, if I put in private, right, my private string name, is there any kind of doubt what it is? No. We know it's private. Okay, that's one thing. And here's another convention that I want you guys to adopt. I talked about this last week, but I'm going to say it again. My name variable that says name here is not correct. I want to kind of double click here and kind of highlight my name variable. I want to right click here and I want to rename this thing, right? But I don't just want to rename it here. I can rename it by just retyping it. I want to do a refactor. So if I go down to, I double click, right click, refactor, rename. What does refactoring do? Anyone know? Yeah.
That'll allow you to change the name of your entire program.
My entire program will change. All my variable name, now it's only appearing here in my instance variable where I declared it on the declaration line, right? It'll change everywhere in my code. Why is this better than renaming it in one place?
Because if you want to change the variable name, say you've used it like 20 times, you have to do every single.
I can do it once a year. Otherwise, I'd have to go through every place where my variable is being used. And here's another problem. What if I make a mistake? Right? There's a higher chance the more times I try and change something manually that I'll make a mistake, a finger typing error, right? Where if I do it once, it's done for the entire thing. Here's a challenge though. What if I have my variable names that are named very similar? Like, for example, name, lowercase, name, uppercase. Should I ever do that? Chances are no. I want to keep my variable names unique. Once I start going into making variable names that are very similar, I run into trouble, right? Because I'm renaming something and I don't know what they mean. So what kind of name is this? Is name really a great variable name? Chances are not. I need to know what name is it. Is it program name? Is it the student name? Is it my name? What kind of name is it? It's not really a great variable name. For now, though, I want to talk about the convention that I'm going to use for all private variables. So I'm going to right-click, refactor. Let's go down here, refactor, and rename. By the way, it tells you the shortcuts here, right? If you look on Windows, it'll tell you your shortcut. If I go rename, it's going to highlight it, and now I can actually rename it like this, underscore name, and press enter. So I want all of your private variables to start with an underscore. Now you might say, damn, that's ugly, Tom. Why are you doing that? Because instantly we're going to know when it's a private variable. When we see an underscore in our code, we're going to go, that's private. Now I've done this before. For those of you who have had me with C#, I've done it before, but some of you I haven't had. So you're going to go, oh, I've never seen that before, right? But it's okay. It's just a naming convention. So all private instance variables, all private methods as well, will be there'll be an underscore in front of it. That's what I want the convention to be. That may mean when you look at an example from the book, a Deedle and Deedle, Java how to program or whatever it's called, early objects, the book that we're using, right? You may see a private variable that's not using this convention. Well, that's their convention. I'm telling you, for us, for the class, for our session, for our tests, for your assignments, I want you to use underscore for all private variable names. If you don't, you're going to lose marks. Okay? It helps us identify private variables, and it's just a convention. Every company that you work for will have their own conventions that they'll ask you to make. So consider this as my company. Where you're in my company, you're all of my employees, and I'm asking you to put underscores as a convention. As the lead, as a senior programmer, I'm telling you guys this is what I want you to do. Or the solution architect, or whatever you want to call me, right? Okay, cool. So let's do this. This is one thing that we were talking about, underscore name. Now, when I use this thing, there's a couple of ways I can use it here in my main class. Remember, using a variable. If I want to set this to something else, I could do this, underscore name, right? And I can assign it a static literal, a string literal, like this. You know, my program name, right? So I can call it something like, I don't know, Tom, right? I didn't specify what name. Hey, here's a problem. I'm getting this really weird underscore issue because I'm trying to do this. It says, look, cannot make a static reference to a non-static field name, right? Here's something that's asked me to do. It says change name to static. Why is that? Why am I having to change my name not only from a private variable, but I got to make it private static? Why? That's right, because remember, I'm not instantiating my program class. It's a container class. In order for me to make it accessible, I cannot use regular naming conventions like private. Because this is a static class, my programming, I'm accessing it from a static method, main. I need to make my variable that I want to access also static because I'm never going to instantiate it in a new object. So there's a quick fix. Look what it says here for quick fix. If I hover over it, it's going to give me a quick fix. And if I click this quick fix, it'll change my private to private static automatically for me. Sometimes what we have is Eclipse suggest these quick fixes for us. Sometimes the quick fix is wrong. Okay, just letting you know. It's going to try and figure something out, but it may not understand what you want. Okay. Okay, so here's my private static name variable. Well, this is one way of doing it. But what about using the this keyword, right? Because we have to talk about the this keyword. If I do something like this, is this also the same? This dot underscore name. Can I do that in this particular instance? Well, it's giving me an error. It says cannot use this in a static context. So typically, you know what? Yeah, we can use this, but not here, right? Because this refers to the class. And this class, this blueprint, isn't anything that's ever going to be instantiated. So therefore, this is an inappropriate reference. Just in case you try it, you say, well, Tom, shouldn't we be using this reference to understand what variable name it is? Yes, we should if it was in a regular class. This is not a regular class. This is my program class that every other program, or all of my other code is being tied into. This is the main program that's going to kick off first. And all the other classes that I'm going to connect with are going to connect here, right? Think about this if you're web programming as my index.html, okay? Everything else has to link to this, right, in order for it to function, right? If I don't have this, right, just like it is in C#, I don't have a program. Okay, there's other things you can do with that, by the way, as an aside, where you don't have to really declare this as a public static class. But for our examples here in our session, it's enough. Okay. So let's get rid of this. We'll just undo that change. Okay, so this is the thing. Now, if I want to print that out too, of course, I can just do another system.out.println. And if you notice, if I start typing away, it'll give me some suggestions. And I can say something like in brackets underscore name, right? Because I'm referring to the variable name that I'm printing out, not the static literal, right? Here's my static literal. I've assigned this to name. I've declared it here as a static variable, and I'm piping it into this println method that's going to send it to the console. Okay, just review. All I'm doing is just review, right? And then when I, run this thing again, bam, I get program started Tom, right? Because Tom is the name I put in there. You might have put your own or some other name, right? Or something else, maybe something inappropriate. But it doesn't matter to me. As long as it appears in your console the way you think it should appear, all the power to you, right? Are we good at this point? I think we've kind of established the norms and everything else. I'm going to say it one more time. For people who came in late, please don't do that. Like you guys are coming in late. It's going to affect the class, and you miss out. Yes, you can watch the video, but it really disrupts me when you come in late. Please try and come on time. All right, so now I've made a change. Hold on. Look what's happening over here. On the left, when I make a change, because I'm connected to Git, it shows me this greater than sign. The greater than sign indicates that, hey, you've made some changes. Do you want to make a commit? Right? I do. I'm going to make another commit here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go down to team, right? And I'm going to click commit. When I do that, it's going to ask me for a commit message. The commit message, again, is just describing my snapshot. All right, so this is the new change I made to my folder. Right, so what's my commit message going to be? Well, I modified my program.java file, right? That's one thing I did. But I added my private name variable to my class. So that's maybe something I want to do. So I added private name variable, name instance variable, something like that to main or to program class. Something that's some kind of message, right? And what is it going to change? I've changed my Java file. This is what it's looking at. If I unclick this, I can't do any kind of commit. I have to have something that I'm committing. It means it has to look at some file that it's going to store as inside of my repository. Okay, so there's two options. I can commit locally, or I can commit and push. Typically, I want to commit and push most often, but sometimes I want to make several commits locally before I push up to the cloud, right? And that really depends on your workflow. That's up to you what you do. I like to commit and push all the time. So click commit and push. Okay, it's going to connect to the master branch, and press OK. And then everything's done. It's committed up to, now if you notice, there's no more greater than sign, because there's no other changes here on the left-hand side. And let's check our repository to make sure there's any changes happening. So right now you look at, there's only one commit in GitHub. When I refresh, now there's two commits. Hey, here's something. What's this brown line here? Right? There's a brown line, right? That's up here. Actually, what this specifies is the type of language that I'm saving up on GitHub. There's different colors. This one indicates it's Java. All right, that's what I'm putting up here. So it keeps track of how many different kinds of repositories we have up. We have this Java repository that we've kind of put up. I have one branch. This is my main branch. Think about a branch as the main flow of my project, right? So I have one branch, almost like one instance of my project, right, that I'm working with. I could have multiple branches if, for example, I have other things I want to include from my main branch. I can branch off and do other things, try these other things, and then if I'm happy with what I'm doing, I don't affect my main branch, but I could always merge the changes back to my main branch and add them in if I have a new feature I want to add in, as an example, right? But for now, if you notice, it did add my commit message here to the file, to the folder that I changed, and to the file that I changed. Add private name instance variable to the program class, right? That's what it added. Right, so here I am. So I've done a couple commits, and if I look at the commits, it tells me who did them and what order they were done in. Here's this. The first one was done 19 minutes ago, and the next one was just done 2 minutes ago. So it keeps track of my commit history, if you will. Again, very useful. Highly recommend you put this into your workflow. Not going to force you. All right? Not in this class. All right. So this is pretty cool. What about if it's something else? What about something else that I want to pull? Like example, if there's someone else I'm working with, let's say Fahim and I are working together, and he wants to put a README message in here so that all people who are looking at this repository know what it's about. So we're going to add a README up online here to simulate this. So I'm going to add a README, and here's my README. It's COMP228 lesson 2 repo, and in here, by the way, the hashtag indicates that it's going to be a headline or a heading, if you will. This is Markdown, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a message that says this repo is for COMP228 Java programming in lesson 2. If I can spell lesson 2, right? I've made a change. I'm creating this new file up online that doesn't exist locally. This README file doesn't exist in my local system right now, right? And if you notice, it's asking me for a commit message. I could make my own message, or I could, with the default, create readme.md, markdown, right? And then click commit new file. If I do that, I've got 3 commits. Now I'm 1 commit behind. Here's my description of my repo, right? And I've got 3 commits here, but locally here, I'm 1 commit behind. I don't know I'm 1 commit behind because I'm not physically linked. There is no session that I've opened up with GitHub, right? It's a one and done. I connect, I push. When I'm done, I disconnect. So my files here don't know, not at least within Eclipse, I don't have any knowledge that there's something that's been pushed, something that's been pushed up online, right? If you're using the GitHub application that you can download from GitHub, it actually does connect, and it does keep track of connections or additional commits. If you're behind, it'll show you have a commit, you're behind, right? It'll show you that. Here, it doesn't show us. So how do we fix that? How do I kind of update my project so that I'm not behind anymore? Well, I can right-click here. I can go down to team, right? And I can do different things here, right? I can do a commit. I can do a push. I can do a fetch. And I can do a pull. Let's do a pull. And what it's going to do is going to say, hey, look, my master branch, it says there's a new README file that's here, right? I just created, right? What do you want to do? I want to press OK. And what it's going to do is going to pull down this README file, and here it is, right? Here's my README file. And if I actually double click onto it, it'll actually show me my README file that I created up online, right? Now I'm even. I'm good. I'm at the same commit level. I'm not a commit behind or a commit ahead. When I do something locally and I save a commit locally, I'm a commit ahead, right? Until I push it up online, then I'm kind of even again, right? Questions around GitHub, why I'm using it, okay? Do you have to use it? No. Am I going to use it so you can find files up on GitHub? Absolutely. This is for you guys to use so you can work with me and then compare your work with mine and say, hey, Tom's worked, but mine didn't. What did you do, right? And if your file and my file are the exact same, then it's something to do with your system, which also can happen, right? Because Eclipse, unfortunately, because it's open source, sometimes there's some glitchiness, sometimes there's extra configuration you have to do on your side. This is part of you being a developer, programmer, call it what you want, and you got to figure that issue out, right? I can also come around and try and help you. All right, this is a great stopping point. It's 11:30. We've kind of connected up here. We can take a 5 or 10 minute break. People go to washroom, and then I'll stop the video here, and then I'll reconvene again in about 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about getters and setters.